Alright, draft physics video. It's a response video to the pyrrho, and the good news from my perspective is basically concedes the existence of the element that creates the paradox in relativity. So he's conceded that it has two momentums, that photons can have two momentums, and in my opinion that just closes the door to rational relativity theory. It increases the speed of light then, and it's a non-starter. It can't work as a theory.
Of an inch, back and forth in an ellipse.
Alright, so now he's back obsessing about the light experiment. Yes, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm going to do the experiment. There was actually still snow on the ground yesterday, and it's only rained like 500 million inches of rain, and now the ground is just a mess. And I have to, its location is the problem. See, the way I was going to do the experiment, I realized, was pointed west. Can't do it that way. So I have to go south, north or south. And I have no, north isn't an option. So all I got is south, and I don't have as much distance as I would have liked to have had, so I'm thinking, yeah, I'll do one mirror maybe, but I don't know. Anyway, but I intend to do it. I got the glasses. I even have a culminating little lens here, but I'm not too sure of the theory of that even, But anyway, but the point is the experiment, nothing hinges on it until there's a theoretical premise, and that's where these people just don't care. There's no attention paid to detail. He thinks this experiment will be conclusive, and how can it possibly be conclusive when it has all these variables that you can't account for, which is the divergence of the laser. If the laser is diverging for the very reason you're attempting to do this measurement, that is, the movement of the emitter is causing the divergence in the laser, then the experiment's fundamentally flawed. So you have to separate the variables to be able to do any kind of to have any function. If they're blended, then the experiment doesn't tell you anything. So it's all in how you understand how light is produced, the mechanisms involved, and as I've stated, by my own theory, it seems clear that the electrons inside the laser are also going to be affected by motion. So this is a problem.
So the other thing is, Gary's obviously coming out. This is denial that the light is imparted with the momentum the same way a bullet is. Well, the issue of
his denial that light is a particle with the same momentum as a bullet. So again, my argument with the bullet is my argument is about all acceleration, actually. All acceleration, so acceleration, when you're actually giving something a velocity, that process blends whatever other motions you previously had and creates your new vector. So if I go back to the two astronauts in space, and they're throwing a wrench back and forth. Now the guy's throwing it at the guy, but when it leaves his hand, the wrench is not going straight to that other guy. The wrench is going to go at an angle. And he'll see it as going straight because the angle will perfectly match with distance the motion of the person's movement. So the person's going to be moving this way, and as he throws it, it's going to move, his vision is going to move with the wrench and the other guy. They're all moving the same. Well, the two guys are moving this way, and the wrench is going to move that way, perpendicular. On a tangent. So it doesn't do a parabola. The parabola was, I wasn't thinking about it on the train. When you're throwing a baseball off a train, the problem is the medium inside the train is moving with you, the air. So when you throw the baseball, it has the problem is that now it has to go through a medium that it has friction in, and it's the friction in the medium that's causing the parabola. The baseball's actually going straight. It's just getting decelerated by the atmosphere, and well, gravity ain't helping either. is another accelerating force, by the way. And those accelerating force keeps changing the angle. So it's not a true parabola. It's a faceted change in its angle every single time. So, it's all these things are a little bit complicated. So theoretically, if you were out of atmosphere, all right, and you weren't in gravity, and the bus was going this way, and you threw the baseball out the window, the baseball moves at a hard, tangential, straight line to the target at the new speed, which is going to be faster than the speed of the bus. Shit.
But the photon is that as a particle, it does do that. Water waves move away from a boat the way Gary's talking about.
No, I don't even know why you have to bring up water waves all the time. This has nothing to do with water waves. My theory has nothing to do with mediums and waves. Those are phenomenons of huge density of material elements. The force is lost in the medium. There's no point in even talking about what a force is doing when it's going through a medium. That's like saying light is going the speed of light through glass, in a sense, or water, when no, it's, in glass it's losing 40% and in water it's losing 25% of its speed. But it didn't lose speed. It's just that now it's taking a different direction. So what's the point of talking about it? I mean, it's not relevant to these, these subjects. I mean, the good news is the atmosphere is a tiny, you just realize how thin the atmosphere is because the percentage is 0.002% slower in atmosphere, or 0.02%. It's really a tiny amount compared to water. So it gives you some appreciation that the fact that water's like 1,000,000 times more dense than the atmosphere.
And photons don't, and that's why everybody's weirded out by the particle wave duality.
Yeah, well, whatever. You're weirded out by it. I'm saying the duality, whatever side I would be on in this subject, I'd either be on the wave theory side or I'd be on the particle side, but I don't think I'd ever do the duality side because that plainly is just retarded. It can't be, there's no such thing as a wavy particle or a particle-y wave. It's just stupid, and it doesn't have any theoretical or it has nothing to do with anything called, in my opinion, diagramming reality, to sit there and give two fundamentally different properties to something. It's just they're in conflict with each other. It can't be both. It's one or the other. As I've argued, the simple argument is there's two things. There's matter and there's force. The force is trapped between the material bits. The material bits are you could almost say they're nothing. But the only relevant issue is the force can't interact with force. It can only interact with matter. So the matter is a conduit for the forces to interact with each other. Without the matter, the forces can't interact. But if you put the matter in there, then the forces can push against each other by hitting the matter. But the matter's kind of irrelevant. The matter doesn't ever do anything. The forces move the matter. And, shit.
When it is shot from that laser, it is imparted with, in addition to its forward velocity, this sideways velocity of the emitter.
Right, okay, so he's saying that light photons can carry two momentums. That is, they go the speed of light in one direction, and they go some other speed in some other direction, and theoretically that means it could move in 3 dimensions. It can move 3 different directions because of the 3 physical dimensions. Now let's understand the 3 dimensions do overlap. So if I was to draw a sphere, I don't know, a sphere. Yeah, that doesn't really look like a sphere, Gary. Well, anyway, the thing to understand is I can cut it in half and have 2 halves, but if I cut it this way in half twice, you'll see that the 2 intersect. So each sphere intersects with the other dimension. So part of the dimension exists in the other dimension. So the dimensions share some territory. And that's the point where I'm talking about how when you accelerate something, those shared dimensions are what are blending the forces and creating your new trajectory.
Now, what I think Gary's just...
All right, well, let me just take what he just said and just for one last time. The argument is there's an emitter. It shoots the photons out. So it's like the guy in space throwing the wrench to the other guy. He's saying the wrench, okay, when it pops off of this hand, it has momentum in this direction, and it's going to go the speed of light in this direction, and that's going to create this as its real direction, okay, the hypotenuse of those two directions. So like the wrench, the light's going to really travel this path. So then when the next photon's released here, when the emitter moves forward half the speed of light, as we're saying, and the new photon is released, the other photon will have jumped in front of it. It will have gone perpendicular, it will have traveled tangentially and arrived in front of the next photon. And then these two photons will both go exactly that same angle and arrive ahead of the third photon once it's emitted. And that's how this beam is going to propagate. And the real point is these photons are actually moving these vectors. They're not, it's not a fake that they arrive in these locations. It's really happening. They're really doing that, and that really requires them to go faster than C in this direction, because they're doing this perpendicular line, which has to be longer than this line. So they're traveling a longer distance. It has to be traveling faster than the speed of light if they see it get to the hole at the rate that it's supposed to be C. And clearly, if they're time dilated, might make fun of my comparisons to it being asleep or having a lower frame rate. There's no other way to explain it. That's what it is like. When you're time dilated, you're not living a longer life. Say I go out into space and I age 100 years and I come back to Earth and everybody's dead because it's 500 years later. I didn't live 500 years. I just lived 100 years. My consciousness absorbs stuff slower. It didn't absorb more stuff. It absorbed stuff slower. The blinking rate was slower. That's all. I didn't live longer. Shit. So anyway, the consequence of this is that the light, when it leaves the ship, will not be going perpendicular to the ship. So when it goes out the hole, it's not going to be going perpendicular. It's going to be going at these angles. All the photons will be going at those angles, and it will be going C+. These photons will still be traveling faster than the speed of light. And there's no theoretical reason that going through the hole will change how fast the light's going. The photons are going faster than the speed of light to get to the hole, and the fact is they're going to continue to do that when they leave, and therefore you've created light that's going faster than the speed of light. That's the paradox they're not dealing with. That's the implication of the baseball analogy. They say light photons are like a baseball thrown through the window of a bus, and they say, and they're not accounting for the fact that means when the baseball hits the ground or hits somebody's catcher's mitt or something, it's going to be going faster than any of the two speeds that created the motion. It has to go faster. That's this implication. This line is longer than this one is longer than this one or this one. It has to go faster than either of the two. That's solid physics.
Very stubborn, he gets it and then doesn't get it, and talks about...
Again, this attitude that I'm the stubborn one, when it seems you people are the stubborn ones that just don't want to pay any attention to the fact that the details of your theory fail.
Time dilation now and people being asleep. Which is just funny to me, the amount of the psychological metaphors and cognitive, will-based, animal-based mentality.
Again, what metaphors am I supposed to use for perception besides something like sleeping or frame rate or blinking, or however I make it known that the reason why you see something moving fast, moving slow, is because you're not seeing every photon. You're not seeing every event. Your perception is slowed down. How else can I say that? That's what's happening.
Metaphors.
I mean, what are your preferable metaphors? I haven't heard what your preferable metaphors are. What are they? How do you metaphor the fact that the rest of people have lived 500 years and you've only lived 100? How do you explain the difference? Because you didn't see 500 years worth of life. You only saw your 100 years worth. You only had 100 years worth of eye blinks. They had 500 years worth of eye blinks. I love this part. This is sort of telling, right? this 20 minutes of, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But anyway, so...
Yes, would be the next one. So you go anyway, then you say so, and you go, well, Yeah, well, would be the one now. Oh, yes, I was close, right? It's almost, well, Yes, when you're cooked, you're cooked. That's right. I guess maybe you're imagining in your head, well, I just basically admitted that the photon has two velocities. If it has two velocities, then it has to be doing that, hypotenuse thing, and it has to be going faster than the speed of light, so I just basically fucked myself in the butt.
So it's what you would expect from water waves. What if there wasn't.
So again, I don't know how this water wave stuff. What expectation is there about water waves? I'm not talking about water waves. I'm not talking about energy passing through a medium. What speed can that possibly have? You can't. It's like saying you can transmit sound past the speed of sound through the atmosphere. Of course you can't. Well, water has the same limitations. You can't send high frequency through water. Then, friggin' submarines wouldn't have any problem picking up radio waves if the water carried them, but it can't.
He's expecting that there is something like this at-rest medium, and that...
No, there's no medium. So again, how does this even come up? How does this medium shit come up? I've only been as aggressive as possible in saying I hate the idea of mediums. Mediums are nonsense. Bent space is a stupid medium. I hate it. All of this wave talk is medium talk. I'm not the one talking medium talk. You are. You're the one saying there's an electromagnetic field. Well, what the fuck is that if it's not a medium? What the hell are you talking about? I'm anti-mediums. There's no fucking mediums except material ones.
And yet it's weird because particles don't behave that way going through water.
And understand, a particle medium isn't really a medium, right? A particle medium is completely dependent on the photons, the forces between the objects. There's no medium without tension. You have to have tension. That means you have to have you have to have force on both sides of something, one going one way, one going the other way, that kind of thing. There has to be tension, magnetic tensions between things. There's no medium without that tension. There's no functional medium. I mean, like sand. Sand is a crappy medium because the tension is really loose. Nothing travels through sand. Sand waves. No, they're pretty hard to create. I mean, unless you're vibrating the whole earth underneath the sand, of course.
That you expect a wave to behave, and it's like, why should light be a particle to Gary? Why should it be a particle to Gary?
No, Gary's question to you is why should it be a wave? Why should the elements the elemental nature of physics be more complicated than the physics we witness? The space is made out of big balls just flying around, really simple mechanics, dirt simple mechanics, and you want to make the elemental function very, very complicated. Huge bent space infrastructure, girders, wheelie bigs, whatever the hell is doing this whole push thing or pull thing by Einstein's definition. all this pulling force, where's it all coming from? The bent space vacuum cleaner is, you know, you're the one creating the complex structure. I'm saying it's dirt simple. The elements are dirt simple.
That's some sort of gut thing. Why is the invisible man of a virtual, unseen virtual particle or other correlations or
Yeah, my argument is they're not virtual, they're actual photons, and if you didn't throw all the photons into the bent space dimension, if you didn't ruin physics by taking all the force of physics and throw it into bent space, then you'd realize that yes, all these other tons, these virtual ones inside of atoms and being caused by magnets, are actually the same tons that are creating gravity. And light, they're all the same thing. They're force. You're the ones that broke the dynamic by creating your stupid frickin' mediums. I'm completely anti-medium. There's no such thing as a stationary elemental bit. No such thing. Matter has moving bits. Okay, they're just trapped. They can't move anywhere. Theoretically, I don't want to confuse things. They're they're force bound. Okay, so they don't leave their package, because for everything that comes in one side, it goes, another thing comes in the other side. They're stuck in balance. Okay, they're elements. They're always exchanging balanced with the external pressure. So they're just the yin to the yang of the external pressure. They're just yinning, or yanging to the yin of the external pressure. Don't get which way you do it, but it's the yin yang, the force versus the matter. And the only thing that's really a functional working element is the force. The force pushes matter.
Metric abstractions about, wave propagation.
Nothing. I've never talked about wave propagation. I don't give a fuck about it. I mean, I'll concede that stuff moves, that waves propagate through mediums, again, but where have I ever stated there are any elemental mediums? Never a statement of mine. I've said exactly the opposite. I've said it aggressively and over again. This is such a straw man pile of shit.
Those invisible men are bad, but invisible red and blue arrows is just what you need to explain.
Right. So the idea of polarization is bad as, so if I went into court and I said, in physics there's this idea of polarization, light has a shape. There's, some of it goes through this way, maybe some of it, gets blocked. Polarization, not a really complicated subject. That's like introducing the invisible man. So saying polarization, that's not like saying genetics. That's like saying invisible man. But virtual photon, now that's solid. That's as good as fingerprints. Yeah. Virtual photon, it's just like fingerprints. So that's his courtroom standard. He's going to make a comparison between creating the idea of polarization as the same as virtual photon. Come on. No one's going to call bullshit but me.
That's an odd part.
Odd to you.
The main thing is that we have an experiment that Gary could do.
Okay, so there we go. It's back to the experiment. So again, so again, this is another subject change, which they always do, but there is a real connection. So let's just for the sake of understanding, if I spin in this chair, reverse where I am, if I was moving, I would see that as a fundamental change. 1 minute, if I was accelerating, there's 1 minute I'm feeling the force this way. The next minute, I'm feeling the force exactly the opposite way. I'm feeling I'm being pushed forward, the other time being pushed back. So that's the theoretical difference between changing your perspective, reversing your position. So when the Earth spins, positions are reversed and left becomes right and right becomes left in a sense. So in a sense, it's good for seeing something, detecting something, because it's like being in a spaceship. So in the spaceship, if I put the laser beam in the center in a spinning chair, and I can shoot it this way, or I can shoot it this way, well, if we shoot it this way, it'll hit the spot over here, and if we shoot it going this way, it'll hit a spot over here. So they'll be exactly opposite. Right? Yeah. Right. I have to think if I'm supposed to draw it this way, but maybe I'm supposed to draw it this way. But then the experiment wouldn't work, so it must be that way. Well, anyway, the point is on one side of the Earth, when I'm spun one way, I'm going to see the thing bend this way. When I'm spun the other way, I'm going to see it bend that way. So that's the theoretical thing for this laser experiment, is that if we shoot a laser, if the Earth is spinning this way, and we shoot lasers this way, when we're on each opposite sides of the Earth, the theory is the laser is going to be a little behind over this way, and then when I'm in the opposite side, it's going to be a little behind what's going to appear forward. So it'll look like it can't be forward. So it obviously has to be behind, but my perspective is going to be opposite, so it's going to look left and it's going to look right. But to this center line, okay. Well, you get the idea is what I'm saying. I think the theory is sound, is that you're going to see the bend in the opposite direction. It's the only point that means anything. Especially because we have the advantage of shining it at a single tree that didn't change its perspective, or a single spot on the Earth. And so that spot basically just spun around the chair. It didn't do anything. It didn't move in any other way. All right. But as pointed out before, so the first problem we have is the laser diverges from this little spot to a spot bigger than this whole piece of paper. Much bigger. And so that's one problem. We have this huge amount of noise in the movement of the beam of the laser. So that means this beam is going to do this kind of thing, which kind of just wipes out our detection. Alright, so that's first problem. Now maybe that's fixable. Maybe you can collate it a little bit. Maybe you can do some things to try to minimize that effect. I was thinking that even using the middle of a Newton's rings, create a Newton ring pattern and then just use the middle portion, because that might be more stable photons. Might be. So I think there's a way around it. I think there's a way to get around this problem. But that's just a thinking thing. I think it. That doesn't mean it is. There is a way. And I say fundamentally this is being created because everything's moving. So I've stated before, it's like, everything's jiggling a lot. The little nuclear bits and everything's jiggling a lot. And so the electrons are jiggling a lot. And so when they get excited and shoot a photon, they'll shoot it from different angles because they're jiggling in different directions at the time they're releasing the force behind them, the compression that they're releasing. So you don't have any guarantee of direction. And so that's a problem. So the movement is what's causing that. The movement of the gravity pushing the thing down and the ground pushing it back up again. Those are all forces. So it's jiggling up and down this way. But the point is the Earth is spinning this way, so the jiggle gets to be angular. Then you have to consider all these other movements. And the other problem I brought up was the Earth and the Moon the moon is it's the heaviest moon in the solar system. So when the Earth and the Moon go around each other, they're doing this kind of motion. Now the problem with that is that obviously at any one time this velocity vector is going to be moving in a different direction. And technically it's going to be faster than this straight line that we perceive the orbit to be. We perceive a straight line. We measure the straight line. We don't measure all of these changes. And these changes are happening at a faster speed. Obviously you have to go faster to go this extra distance. So the actual speed of the Earth is actually faster, which is good for the experiment, but it's bad for the measuring because the motion isn't the same. It's not a straight velocity. So it's constantly under acceleration. So again, it's this problem of the difference between an inertial velocity and an accelerated frame. So they're out of the inertial frame and they're in an accelerated frame, which means all bets are off on which way it's actually going, because it's creating which way it's going to go. It's doing the calculations. Acceleration is when the calculations are done to figure out where you're going. All right. And then the other problem is that the Earth and Moon this whole spiral is also probably spiraling. And at the Earth and the Sun, the whole solar system is going this way, against the, if the solar system's going this way, I don't know how to describe, the whole thing is orbiting, the pancake is moving this way around the galaxy. So the pancake is off the center. It's going this way around. So that motion you can't detect because that would be north-south, and that's the faster speed. So that's the disappointing part. If the Earth rotated north to south, then you could detect that, because then you'd be turning the right way to do the left-right change. But because the Earth is spinning this way, it doesn't help you any, because you don't get 2 vantage points on the motion going the other way. But anyway, but it does make me want to try pointing the lasers, west, just to see. Anyway, so this isn't a slam dunk experiment. It's got lots of theoretical problems, and it's just like, look, it's just like the Michelson-Morley thing. They all say it's absolute proof, it's proven, it's done, and there's just no willingness to say, hey, wait a minute, there's some problems with this theoretical problems with the experiment, let alone the mechanical problems. And there's no willingness to accept that maybe this experiment just isn't good enough for what it's trying to do. Maybe it's not precise enough. They always did these exaggerated claims. It's like the Lycos people saying we can measure the width of a human hair at 2 light years. That's a theoretical statement. I don't think it has any meaning whatsoever as anything they can actually practically do. So enough of that. But again, this is, in my opinion, a subject change. I mean, I wish we'd just stay on relativity and the idea of giving a photon 2 momentum. So now people should understand what I mean by 2 momentums. He's conceded the existence of the second momentum. That, like a baseball moving in a bus, it has the momentum of the bus, and if I throw it, now it has the momentum of my extra force. And that the velocity it's going to end up with is going to be greater than both the velocity of the bus or the velocity I threw it at. Whichever one's greater, it's going to be greater than that velocity.
With real-world detectable numbers in a hobbyist lab, you don't need a big $1 million NSF lab, and we could.
So again, he's saying you don't need any of this stuff, and you sort of do. And I was a little disappointed. Like I said, when I did find out Lycos isn't really concerned with the spread of the laser, so they don't care how much their laser diverges, because the only thing they want to make sure is that all the photons their wavelengths are all in perfect phase. So all the photons are all lined up perfectly. There's none going at different phases, start-finish phases. That all the waves are peaked at the same time and troughed at the same time. So they don't really give a damn about how much it spreads. And we need somebody who gives a damn about how much the laser spreads.
And this could be checked.
Yeah, there's no... Okay, my only argument here is that I was enthusiastic about the experiment. You pointed out the divergence of the laser, and I said, well, that's not too good. And then the more I thought about it, what's causing the divergence, well, then that's when I lost enthusiasm, because it seems clear that probably a fundamental cause for the divergence of lasers is the fact that the lasers are moving. So I was thinking about cold. They do all these experiments at freezing temp, whatever, really cold, absolute zero kind of stuff. and that maybe in that environment it's quiet enough, you've isolated from enough force to actually have a chance to create a very small and straight laser.
It seems like you're taking Gary at his word that he's going to try to discuss things more civilly.
So this is another bizarre misparaphrase. I've never made any such claim on this DraftScience channel. I don't owe you people any civility. You've been incredibly rude, obnoxious, arrogant, patronizing, totally insulting. I have no obligation to be anything but rude to you fuckers in return. I made a statement about my videos on the Amendum channel, not the DraftScience channel. And when I make videos on the Amendum channel in the future, I don't think I'll do response videos on that channel, frankly. I don't think I'll bother talking to you monkeys. I'll go try to have conversations with real, responsible, intelligent people who aren't idiots and morons and insane, basically. There's no point in having a philosophical conversation about values with idiots who can't figure out what is valuable. So, yeah, there's really no conversation to be had. So, yeah, that's only context. But I don't owe you people any civility, because you have shown none. You've shown absolutely no fucking respect. And why should I have any respect for that? And then the bleed over from the philosophical conversations into this conversation, I can't do anything about that. I mean, yes, your butt hurt from those philosophical conversations where I basically called you what you are, which is a bunch of glib Nazis. You don't have it. There's no counter argument. Why should I have friendly conversation with glib motherfucking Nazis? And that's all you fuckers are. You take risks with other people's welfare, other creatures' welfare, and you're just glib about it. I'm worth it. Well, fuck you. I don't think you're anywhere close to worth it, you fucking torturing pricks. How the fuck do you think I'm going to have a civil conversation with some asshole who walks up to me and says, I don't think Jew pain matters. Fuck the Jews. I'm supposed to have a civil conversation with this moron? No, fuck that. I'm going to stick a fork in his fucking eye.
Not necessarily more amiably, and I hope that is the case.
Look, you keep it civil and I'll keep it civil, but I'm not going to accept being insulted. I'm not going to have my intelligence insulted by patronizing and misparaphrasing and lying scum. So quit lying about what I say, and quit pretending you're smarter, and quit pretending that you have some authority or some pile of evidence from which you have a superior position, because you're not standing on any superior position. The evidence sucks.
I for one do not like being called glib. I don't really mind it because...
Well, I don't like it, but I don't mind it. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Not. And again, this is separate. This is the DraftScience channel. I mean, I don't want this bleed into philosophy. I've discouraged a bleed into philosophy. So again, fuck this shit.
I don't have a thick skin, but it is like a metal mesh. And so that's fine, but I don't really like people denting even, or trying to pierce that with this glib thing. I've been through some heavy shit.
Yeah, and you learned nothing from it, so you brought it up. I've been through some heavy shit, and you learned absolutely nothing. You have provided absolutely not one single insight of what you have learned through your colossal fuck-ups. I mean, I've at least made videos saying to anybody, don't smoke cigarettes, don't acquire addictions. I've said don't do drugs, which is a very unpopular thing to do. But I said, yeah, just don't. Why bind yourself and addict yourself to something unnecessarily? I mean, I just quit drinking coffee a couple months ago. And yeah, it was just a stupid blight to my existence. It wasn't doing me any good. Yes, the caffeine is nice, but it's not a good way to get it.
I don't think I'm glib.
You're glib as fuck. I don't think I'm glib. I can't even describe, I can't even manufacture how bad things have to get before you say no mas. You will allow life to get insufferably horrible. I could kill, no, I can make 2 million kids go blind a year from a lack of vitamin A. I could increase that to 200 million and be okay with you. I could increase it to 1 billion and it'd be okay with you. You'd still say life is worth living. If that isn't glib, I don't know what the fuck is. There's no torture level I could I could turn the knob up to where you'd say no mas. There's none. That's the definition of too fucking glib.
So very good description. I
thought it was just horrible for a lot of reasons. Like, first off, it completely wasted time with scenarios I didn't describe that aren't my argument, and then changed the subject to, in the whole end of the video, is a completely different subject about energy disposition equations, like how energy is disposed by matter, which is a completely different subject, which conventional physics has no clue on, obviously, either.
Good approach, just like you're right, Gary was good to actually draw a picture of what he thinks we're saying.
Right, you just confirmed it. You think photons carry momentum in more than one dimension. So they're not only going the speed of light in a direction, but they can be going this way and this way. So they're going this way, and they can also be going a little bit this way, and they're also going that way. So they can go half the speed of light this way, and half the speed of light this way, and the speed of light that way. And then they go even quicker. So then you go C++. I don't know whether that's a deterministic reference, that it would turn out to be the same as a programming language, but yes, that's what you can do. C++.
And you drew a very good picture. Gary's prediction is that it goes off this way and makes it spot on.
Oh yeah, and he calls this a very good picture. Come on. It's a mess.
On the wall, well, the photons really are going the direction that the light...
Yes, if there was a hole behind the hole, like up where it should be, then all the photons go straight through the hole perpendicularly, and they hit the target they originally were aimed at. Yes.
Laser was pointed, and we're saying, like, this angle is what a person on the ground will see, with this hole moving over here just in time, and then what people on the ship will see is the thing going straight up. So,
right, but they won't see it go straight from the outside, because as the 60 Symbols video conceded, this is the angle that the light's actually moving, and when it goes through the hole, it's going to continue moving in that direction. So your light is going to be hitting stuff this way. I mean, it's going to hit one thing and then next thing and next thing and next thing, obviously, because the ship's still moving. So, but the photons are not going to be coming out perpendicularly. They're going to be coming out forward, and they're going to be moving faster than the speed of light.
So, it's a very good summary of what we're discussing.
No, it was a bad summary in the sense he didn't deal with the fundamental problem, which is if you give the photon two momentums, its actual speed is now faster than the speed of light. If the individual watching the photons go across is time dilated, that means he's seeing something faster at the speed of light. So if he's seeing it going the speed of light, we know because he's time dilated, it's actually going faster than the speed of light. You can't have it both ways. You can't be time dilated, seeing something go across the ship as it's going the speed of light, as if it is the speed of light. That's a paradox creator.
My emphasis, obviously, has been that this all means, this is correct. I'm sure this is what Gary's saying versus what we're saying. And there's an experiment to determine the difference. So
no, there's a thought experiment that finishes the subject. And there's an experiment you can do with a school bus and a baseball. And that experiment's already been done. So what you're saying is the light carries two momentums like the baseball, and we know the baseball leaves the bus. If I throw it out the window, we know it leaves the bus going faster than the bus and faster than I threw it. It's going faster than either one of those two speeds.
think the main thing is to get a series of updates on Gary's progress doing that experiment. Now, I've thought of doing the experiment myself.
All right, we don't need all this. He wants to shoot off a rock and do it this way. Yeah, he has the advantage of the lake because, yeah, that gives you a nice... I mean, I obviously have a problem because I have to go through tree branches. I wanted to do it out my own house because, you know, I can use the neighbor one because it's empty right now. But you know, I have my deer netting up, and then, so when I shot the laser, I was getting diffracted by the deer netting. So that wasn't going to work, and I didn't want to take down the fence, so... Well, anyway, it is a little bit of a pain in the ass to find enough open space where I can put a laser and leave it in one place. I mean, that's the whole point, right? I want to be able to set it up indoors so I can leave it in one position, electronically turn it on and off so I don't touch anything or move anything at all. And, you know, I really can't, you know, there's a field I could take it to, but, you know, then I have to leave my laser out in the middle of nowhere for somebody to steal. I don't think that's a great idea. And it also has to stay on the weather, which is, you know, so I have to create a shelter for it.
I priced sufficient lasers
All right,
and
so
beam collate.
we'll just jump ahead. Yeah, I'm just not too sure about beam collating. You know, bending light that you're trying to figure out how much it's bending, you know, that might be just making more of a mess.
Inside part of the house, bounce it back in mirrors or something. But all of that seemed moot because while it might be fun a little bit, the motivation of this conversation to do it, I don't want to do it. And then somebody says, well...
Yeah, that's not going to be the accusation. So now you see, this is another way of insulting people. I'm not going to argue that if you do an experiment that you cheated. I mean, especially because we have video, you can video the experiment. I mean, what argument is going to be? I mean, you know... I'm not going to say you're cheating. So again, just this whole accusation, somehow I just walk around calling everybody a cheater. I pointed out the people who are misrepresenting a truth, and I call them a cheater. Who innocent have I slandered with the accusation they're cheating? Who did I do that to? Where did I make an inappropriate accusation against an experiment? Where did I do that?
That I cheated. Which obviously would happen. I find other people's experiments, and I'm told that I'm lying, that I know those.
Well, let's see. Now he's saying that it's okay to take evidence that has not been done under the same conditions as another experiment, and to say that we're going to make two comparisons when that's like doing a drug test and saying you're doing a control, and the control was all people you selected because they had superior genetics or something. It's a clear distortion. So we're back to his stupid water wave sample. That's a complete distortion of the experiment. He had to distort the conditions of the experiment to create it, to make it look the way they wanted it to look, and it has nothing to do with the actual phenomenon. We know that waves go through a slit and they come out like this. They propagate evenly. And it's only if you put broken waves in, turbulence in, are you going to get diffracted waves out in a single slit. That's the truth. And you're not accepting responsibility for that being a cheat of the experiment, because if I put turbulence into the double slit, I'm going to break that experiment. So you're not fixing a problem, you're misrepresenting the truth. And somebody should say that's what it is. It's a misrepresentation of the truth.
Experiments relies on I'm cheating, I know that, but so to actually do the experiment, I have other things I want to build. I want to build kinetic water sculptures.
Yeah, well, whatever. Sounds really exciting. I'll jump ahead a couple of 30 seconds. I don't know if that makes any difference.
And 1,000th the speed of light for the galaxy, for the solar system.
Yeah, exactly, but it's the wrong way. So again, there's no rotational chance on that one because we're moving that speed north to south, and that won't help you any.
Just flying through space, that would be very noticeable. But also just the speed around the Earth would be very noticeable.
It's the speed actually around the sun, so you didn't say that right, but whatever.
Well, why should our only speeds be the speed around the Earth? It's also the speed of the galaxy.
Right, but we don't know which way that one is either, so that's the whole problem with this whole speed question, right? So that's what I'm trying to illustrate here, is that we have a bunch of compound velocities, And most of those velocities are being created by acceleration. So they're always changing the actual vector that we're moving. We're being accelerated into the surface of the Earth. The Earth is a sphere, so that direction is always constantly changing, the exactness of it. Then we're being pulled by the moon, technically, its portion of the force. We're getting pulled by the sun, which is another acceleration. The acceleration of the sun, Earth, the solar system, it's accelerating around the galaxy, which again is another acceleration. It's being accelerated into the galaxy theoretically. I'm not too sure if that's what happens anyway. I think we're moving towards Alpha Centauri. We're moving to the suns that are closest to us. We're not moving in the direction of the galaxy. We're moving towards the matter in the galaxy, are part of the galaxy. That's why galaxies have arms. It's because the stuff is moving into the arms. But anyway, that's a whole other question. The acceleration is into the arms. All right. It's a lot of accelerations, and accelerations are where the directional vector is being configured constantly. So it's not very good in terms of it's not necessarily a straight line. It's when you're out of acceleration that you have a straight line. When you're in acceleration, you're doing a lot of bouncing around, like the bullet in the barrel of the gun. You're wobbling before you start flying straight.
And that could be faster. Of course, I believe it's going around the center of the galaxy and would be moving, but all of those speeds should add up to something significant. So, all right.
But again, like I said, they're the wrong. Unfortunately, they're no good for the left-right thing because we're not rotating in the direction of that velocity.
Cheers.
Right. Well, screw that. But anyway. So I got enough on this subject. I really do want to do some Michelson-Morley research, but I don't want to devote too much time to this. I mean, I should do actually I should find the other, the longer, the first LIGOS type experiment, where they made an interferometer that's the long, on the ground. Because Michelson-Morley, the first, like I said, the problem with the experiment is I don't think it's nearly big enough. I mean, it's a tabletop experiment. It just doesn't, all you got is a length of a few meters. I don't think it's long enough to do any of this. Not even close. So I think it has lots of theoretical problems. But again, this whole idea of splitting light that isn't all on the same phase, I don't see how it does you any good than to recombine light that's chaos. So it's chaos light split in half. So you have two pieces of chaos, and then you combine two pieces of chaos. I don't see how that can resolve anything. So I think there's a theoretical problem with this whole idea of using phase shift to detect length changes. Alright, so enough said. Till next time and such.